Okay, so second question is square root of n cubed m to the power of 8 times m squared over n. Let's start from the top and go down. So first step, in case you did not know, square root is the same as saying to the power of a half. So square root of example A equals a to the power of a half. So we got to put this in expanded form. I'm putting these two, n cubed and m to the power of 8, in a bracket and saying they're all to the power of a half, because it's the same thing as saying square root of. Okay? Times m squared over n. Okay, now next step. Now I expand this one. So I go n cubed. So anytime you have an indices outside and everything inside must be multiplied by this. So you got n cubed to the power of a half and m8 to the power of a half. So the next step I'm doing is I'm going n cubed to the power of is in a bracket like this means times, multiply. So n cubed times a half times m to the power of 8 times a half. So all of this inside here is to the power of a half, and when indices have an exponent, then you multiply. Remember, because if you're timesing, it's plus. If you're dividing, it's minus. But if it's to the power of, for indices, it's times. So n to the power of 3 times a half times, because n3 times m8. So times m8 to the power of a half times m squared, and I just separated this n just so that it's really clear. So I'm expanding it further. I'm saying m squared times 1 over n. So I separated these two so that we can organize it better and put all the n's on one side and the m's on the other side. Okay, next step. 3 times a half is what? 3 over 2. So n to the power of 3 over 2 times, what's this? 8 times 1 over 2, which is m to the power of 8 over 2 times m squared times 1 over n. Okay, next. N, still the same, times, so I put the n's together and I put the m's together. And the other thing I did was, when you have a like this 1 over n, it's the same as saying n to the power of -1. So if that was a 3 over n, you will say n to the power of, no, I'm lying. But 1 over n is the same as saying n to the power of -1. So I said, I kept this the same. I moved this to the front here, and I'm changing the arrangement of it so it's n to the power of -1, which is the same thing as saying 1 over n. Okay, so that's a rule you have to remember. Okay, then I'm saying times m to the power of 4, because m to the power of 8 over 2. 8 over 2 is what? 4. Times this one, m squared. Okay, now I go n. Now the reason I'm doing, I made it a improper fraction, or a proper fraction here, is because 3 over 2 is the same as saying 2 goes into 3 once and a half, right? So n to the power of 1 and a half times n to the power of -1. So the reason why I changed it to a proper fraction is because, or a mixed fraction, sorry, is because I want to minus this one. Remember, this and this timesing of exponents is the same thing as plus and minus. So 1.5 plus -1 is a half. It's like 1 minus 1 is a half left. Times m to the power of 4 times m to the power of 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6. Then you go n. Oh yeah, I wrote that here. N to the power of 1.5 plus -1 times m to the power of 6. It's the same as saying n to the power of a half times m to the power of 6, which is the same as saying n to the power of 1/2 is the same as saying square root of n, because remember up here I said the square root, that was the original question, and then I put them both in the brackets to the power of a half. So now what we'll do here is put it back to square root form. So we'll use this square root of n, which is the same as saying n to a half to the power of a half, multiplied by m to the power of 6. And how do you express that as the best, most simplest fraction? You usually go m to the power of 6 times root of n. This should be the answer. Let me know.